Welcome back to the Something in the Wilderness podcast, where we select an Andrew McMahon song from his catalog each episode, and we deep dive into it, hoping to learn something new about the artist and his songs. Today, we're talking about another song that I admittedly don't know too well. I've known about it for years, but it just doesn't come up in shuffle very often, and I don't really seek it out specifically, to be honest. When our guest Noah reached out to me recently and he suggested it, I took this opportunity to learn more about a song that I'm not really that familiar with. So welcome back to the show, Noah. It's your second round. How you doing?
Yeah, good. Thanks for having me. Great being back on. Looking forward to talking about songs. I figured no one else had been chomping at the bit to try to talk about this song, so I was happy to be the one to do it.
Well, you're right about that. Yeah, I don't hear it as too many people's favorites, but we'll definitely get more into that. At this point, I don't even know whether the song we're talking about today is one of your favorites, but I guess we'll find out shortly. What have you been up to? It's been, so I was looking at the calendar. It's been exactly, like almost to the day, 2 years since we last talked.
That's weird.
Yeah.
Well, that's weird. Well, been busy. I mentioned last time that I had gotten engaged.
Mm-hmm.
Had been about a month at that point, and now we are married. I am out of college now. I'm currently in my first year of teaching, which has been excellent. Very stressful, but good.
Oh, I bet.
So yeah, lots different, but it's been really great.
Well, you're doing some noble work out there. We appreciate it as parents, especially from my perspective, but also as all citizens should appreciate what the teachers do, because it's hard work, and I get it. So thank you for that. And yeah, it sounds like you've had some major life changes. I mean, married, graduated, started a brand new career. That's like just about the big three, I would think, almost. So
Yeah, absolutely. And we're by no means our kids on the horizon. Oh my gosh. But we did just adopt a new dog.
well, welcome back for the second round. Now, last time we talked a lot about Love in Great Buildings, which was back from 2017 off of Zombies on Broadway. That song was always special to me. I always had a deep love for that song, but I feel like our conversation even enriched my love for that song. So I want to thank you for that. And I was glad when you reached out a while back and said, hey, I'd like to come back to the show. And I know it's been a while since you sent that initial email, and I'm finally glad we found time to get you back here. So
Yeah, me too, for sure.
yeah, so thank you for coming back. Now, this time around, we're going to go back a little bit further, but still in the modern Andrew McMahon in the Wilderness era, and talk about, I would say, an even deeper cut than before. In fact, this song wasn't even on a regular album, but it was the beginning of the Wilderness era. Today, we're talking about a song called Art School Girlfriend, which was a bonus track on the Andrew McMahon in the Wilderness self-titled album. The album was technically released on October 14th, 2014, but this was on the deluxe edition. Do you happen to know when the deluxe edition came out? Because I found 3 different answers on the internet.
Oh, I have no idea. Because
Yeah.
wasn't it also like one of like the Japanese exclusive tracks? Because then I'd
Yes.
assume that it came out at the same time, but this was the like Japanese exclusive. I don't know. I mean, I have no idea. Had not questioned it now.
Yeah, so technically, I agree with you. Technically, it came out at the exact same time because it was on the Japanese edition, which was released the same day.
Okay.
For us on American streaming, I don't know when it came out. It was months later, or it was a year later, or it was 2 years later.
Yeah.
I don't know, because I've read so many different answers that I can't find anything official. But it's really not that important in the scheme of things. What's more important is do you remember how you first heard it or came across it?
Um, it would have been. I don't have like a specific memory tied with it or anything,
Mm-hmm.
but for me, as I kind of talked about last time, In the Wilderness has definitely been like my go-to project of his. I definitely enjoy a lot of Jack's Mannequin, and Something Corporate is off and on. But with the In the Wilderness, that was definitely the one I first explored all the way through. So whenever, I don't even know when it would be at this point. I may have talked about it in the last podcast, but I don't remember anymore. Whenever I first started listening to Andrew, I did go through and try to listen to all of the In the Wilderness. It wasn't until quite a bit later that I then went in and tried to listen to some of the past projects.
Mm-hmm.
Once I was able to get to the point where I was listening to all of it, whenever that was. Oh.
So this song was already out along with everything else, right? When you started listening to Andrew. So it was like
Yes.
it was all new to you maybe a few years after it was technically new. Is that
It was in between Zombies and Upside Down Flowers is when I came in.
When I first heard Art School Girlfriend, I don't remember when it was either. I don't have a specific memory tied to it, but I don't really have any history with this song at all, which is why it was a really good opportunity to bring you, who might have a little bit more history than I do with this song, onto the podcast. I probably heard it whenever that deluxe edition came to streaming, and I was like going through and I probably shuffled all of Andrew's music, and it came up, and I was like, "What's this?" And then it played through, and I was like, "Okay, cool." And then I listened to the next thing, and kept liking what I liked, and didn't pay as much attention to that one. Not to say that I don't like it, but yeah, it isn't something that really stuck with me the first few times around, let's say. It isn't something that really stuck with me until fairly recently, actually, to be completely honest with you. Let's go through some stats, and like I said, jump in anywhere you'd like with any thoughts you have. But I did find out that the song was written by Andrew and Mike Viola. You may remember that name, and those listening may remember that name because I've talked about him on the podcast a couple times. He helped write several of those Andrew McMahon in the Wilderness self-titled songs. I think it was 6 out of the 10 that made the album, actually. And the ones I've talked about here on the podcast that he helped write were High Dive, Black and White Movies, and Hulls. The song was produced by Viola McMahon and James Flanagan, just like the majority of that album was. And I'm going to assume that they all played on the track like they did those other songs, but I don't know because there's not a whole lot of information about a bonus track out there online. So I took a few guesses here. So again, this is just going by who played on the other songs that I mentioned, and I'm assuming they did the same. So we've got McMahon on vocals and keyboards, Flanagan on the programming, and Viola on bass. I don't think there's guitar on this song, but I don't know.
I wouldn't imagine, unless it is very in the background. I don't feel like there is, no.
I know they originally recorded guitar for some of those tracks and then ended up muting. I've heard Andrew say they ended up muting some of it as kind of a pop technique, less is more sort of thing.
Right.
And that may be what happened here. I don't know, but I don't hear any guitar on it, so we're just going to go with it. You know, being familiar with this song, being familiar with that album, what's your opinion on why this song may not have made the original album? Do you have any thoughts on that?
This song, along with Lottery Ticket, both feel very obvious to not be in the main album. I feel like the main album is a lot larger, is the best way I could describe it, in that, like, instrumentation, lyrics, all of it is just very big. It's these big emotions, these big feelings, and the instrumentation really backs that up. And this song is so not that way. And I don't feel like Lottery Ticket is either. And I don't think that it's necessarily like they are weaker songs, but I don't feel like that they fit in at all with really a ton of Andrew's stuff, but definitely that album, it just doesn't, they don't feel like they fit. Why was it that these two songs were ones that he was like determined needed to be bonus tracks?
Yeah.
I don't know, because they're odd songs. They do, like, I talk about both of them kind of together, but they are two odd songs in his discography, I feel like. Just tone, sound, everything.
I agree with you there. They've always felt a little bit outside the mix. So again, I put Andrew on shuffle, Andrew McMahon in the Wilderness on shuffle, right? So Zombies on Broadway, Upside Down Flowers, the self-titled, and even the 4-song EP that came before self-titled is in that mix. Yet it doesn't really sound like any of them completely. It doesn't sound like it fits into the mold of any of them, and they're such different albums, all the ones I just named.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that there's only one, and it's not even an original, like the original recording of it. It's a re-recording of one of the songs, which I'll touch on later. But I think there's only one song in his whole catalog that, especially this one, sounds like at all.
Oh, I'll be curious to hear that. Yeah. So I've heard Andrew say that he loves this song, and I think it was on one of those Instagram live streams, if I'm not mistaken, from a few years ago that we've talked about before. But I think he said he loved this song and he wasn't even sure why it didn't make it on the album. But I think the things that we just talked about are probably why someone, I don't know if it was him, decided that maybe it didn't fit on the album. But I am always curious. You bring up a good point. I'm always curious. So what makes a song not make the album but good enough or the right fit for a deluxe edition?
Right, especially because of the weird tradition. I'm not even sure. I've researched this before, and I'm sure there is an answer, but the reason that Japan gets so many of these just random deluxe editions with a few bonus tracks, What was it about the Japanese market that he goes, they're gonna like this one?
Yeah, yeah, that's a good point. There's another song in addition to the two you've mentioned already. The one we're talking about, plus Lottery Ticket, "Shelter Breaks," which I don't even think I know that song, and it was on the Japanese edition either. I'm sure it's on
Didn't even know it
YouTube.
existed. Okay.
That's just yeah, that's just based on Wikipedia.
Yeah.
I assume it to be true because of Wikipedia, but
Right.
I don't know that song at all. That's been a thing that's been around for a while because I remember in the days of in the age of CDs, you could buy the Japanese edition and you might get an extra song or a different song. So this is pre-streaming era, right?
Right.
And I don't know what qualified for a Japanese edition versus an American edition. Why they would get an extra song? That's just
Some of those don't ever get a more quote unquote official release where like
right.
these are on streaming, but there's plenty of artists in the similar genre that he's in that I know there's plenty of songs that I don't like. It is YouTube to try to hear them because they don't get released on streaming. Yeah, it is weird. I'm sure there's an answer. I don't know it, unfortunately.
Yeah. If anybody listening knows the answer, please chat me on DM me on Instagram because I would really be curious about that one. But yeah, like I said, because it's a bonus track, there's not really much information out there on the internet to go research this one. Like he doesn't talk about it in articles. He doesn't play it at live shows, which we'll talk about real soon here. And so there's not many times where Andrew's actually been vocal about the song or it's been put to paper what this song, the stats or what the song's about or anything like that. So like a lot of these episodes, much of it's speculation, if not most of it's speculation. But usually we have more hard facts to go on than we will today. So speaking of live history, I only know of one time it's ever been played live, and that's if you consider Instagram live streams actually live.
Right.
It's a song that didn't make the album. He says he loves it, but he never plays it in concert. Now, I don't know, maybe it's a difficult song for a band to play in concert, but I don't buy that at all because the songs on his new album, if you hear just the album version, it sounds like, okay, there's a lot of electronics going on and things like that. That'd be hard to arrange with, just your traditional instruments, but they find a way. So I don't think
Right.
that's quite it. But there's a reason this song's been left behind out of the set lists and again off the album. And I'm not sure what that is, but he did play it on May 5th, 2020 on an Instagram live stream. And that's the only time. In fact, that's probably when I first realized that it's like I'm sure I'd heard the song before then, but that's the first time that it really brought it to my attention. Like, oh yeah, there's
Right.
this song called Art School Girlfriend by Andrew McMahon. Why haven't I ever listened to that as much as his other stuff? I mean, it's another track in the catalog, but I really didn't give it much time of day. And I think that's the point where I went back and listened to it.
Right.
But even then, I went back and listened to it and I was like, yeah, okay, it's fine. And it still didn't catch my ear 3 years ago when I heard it. So we talked about live shows last time, and I know you hadn't been able to see Andrew McMahon in concert up until that point. I remember the story. You had tickets twice. One didn't come to fruition because of the pandemic, unfortunately, in 2020, and the other time you had some bad weather issue.
Yes.
And I know you live in an area where maybe Andrew doesn't visit too often. So has Andrew been to your area, or have you gone to an area where Andrew's been since we last talked in the last 2 years?
All right, so the answer is yes, he did come in the area.
Uh-huh.
Thank goodness.
Excellent.
He did. He came to Tulsa, which is about an hour from me. This was on the tour with Dashboard. Yes, I did officially get to see him. Just on an aside, he's decided now's the time to come to Oklahoma. It's time to come to Oklahoma all the time because he's coming on the next little tour to Oklahoma City. Conveniently, we'll be in Colorado during that time.
Oh, no.
Oh, I am so frustrated by this. But yes, I did get to see him. I'm very excited. It was a fantastic show.
So you saw him in Tulsa for the Hello Gone Days tour. So you saw Dashboard as well.
Yes.
Are you a Dashboard fan, or are you just kind of like, oh, fine, it's an opening
A
act?
fan would be the wrong word. I listened to their newest album when it had come out and was very familiar with that. And then I know like some of their hits. So
Okay.
fan is probably not the right word, but
Yeah.
moderate enjoyer. Yes.
Okay. Cool. So was it all you expected? Was it like,
That tour was insane. I tried to not ruin the set list. I really did not want to look it up, but I gave in. I was seeing what he was playing, and I'm like, this is what like one of the best set lists I could imagine.
Hmm.
I know that like he made a point to play Constantine through most of the tour. I don't even remember what song it was now, but there was one song that at the time of our show had only played live like maybe barely over like into double digits. I
Hmm.
think he ended up playing it the rest of the tour, but I was super because we were the first one that happened for. I was super stoked about that.
Hmm.
It was fantastic. I mean, I knew it would be great. I'd seen plenty of videos and enviously watched all of them, but we had a fantastic seat. I hate to do the brag thing, but this is a story that I can't not tell.
Hmm. I want to hear it.
Yeah, no, we had a fantastic seat where it was right in the like walkway area, and he would be coming down and walk through, and he always would walk through our section. One time specifically, he came through during synesthesia, and he was like shaking hands as he's walking by. And then, right as the chorus is coming, he gets to me, puts his arm around me, and like holds the mic up to like both of our faces, and we're both like singing into it. Now, unfortunately, the video on my phone does adequately show this because I was videoing. Thank goodness. You can hardly see me because I wasn't focused on the video, of course, but you do see me forget all of the words and just stand there blank for a second because I totally blanked on everything the second he got there. Because, yeah, I'm like, he's putting his arm around me. He's like putting the microphone in my face. I'm like, yeah. So I kind of, butchered the moment a little bit, but I doubt he noticed.
Oh, I'm sure he didn't mind. And so it's funny you say that because I've thought about that. What if that very thing happened to me? I wouldn't know what the words at all. I would just be like,
I know.
whether I knew the words on a normal day or not, I would just be blank staring like, and I'd be so nervous. I mean, it sounds like it would be a really cool thing. It would be an amazing moment, but I wouldn't even know what to do with it.
Right.
So,
I know.
so I'm kind of glad to hear you say that.
Yeah, it's hilarious. I mean, it is hilarious to watch the video of me just like, because I'm still like trying to sing the melody, so all it becomes
Uh-huh.
is in the video. Yeah, it was fantastic. So much fun because he had come by multiple times, and I think he seemed to have like recognized me when we got to talk to him after the show as well. So I think he kind of was realizing that I was a fan. I know he wouldn't care, but you can't help but sit there and go, I know the lyrics. I'm sorry I butchered it. So,
Hmm.
but I think he had noticed me like singing along the rest of the show. And probably part of why he came to me specifically. Crazy, just a crazy experience. Still mind blowing that happened.
So it's cool you got to meet him after the show too. That's great.
I've never been the kind to stay after, honestly, because I just felt weird about it. But I knew that he's one that does come out and talk after shows, so I was like, I'm gonna get over this. I'm just gonna go stand out there. Yeah, he did come out and got to talk with him for a little bit.
I'm glad he came out because the two shows that I went to on the Hello Gone Days tour, he did not come out, and
Oh,
then, but that's all right. So I,
yeah,
I have had the pleasure of talking to him once or twice after a show, and it is really cool. So
I'm very glad he came out. There was a group of us, but yeah, I was hopeful. But I guess he also had like some friends he was talking to because there was like a group that he like pulled back into his area with him, like from the people standing out. Like
hmm.
because he comes up and he's like, I'm so sorry, y'all. I know you've been waiting, but I got some friends here that I wanted to talk to. So he also had done that. So that could also been why maybe we got lucky that he had friends in the area that he wanted to
Yeah,
talk to.
yeah, because it didn't seem like he was coming out for a lot of those tour dates. So I'm glad he came out for yours.
Yeah, it was very exciting. Now I believe the lead singer of Dashboard Confessional. Uh,
Chris Caraba.
yep, I believe he also walked by. Clearly, all of us were Andrew fans because like nobody interacted with him. He like
Yeah.
waved and like nobody said anything. I felt very bad. I was like, because afterwards I go, oh my gosh, I realized who it was. That's a awkward experience.
I've seen musicians outside of places, and I'm like, I don't know what to say to them. Like, I don't want to not be genuine. So
Right.
like, you don't want to.
Yeah.
waste their time and be, so I get it. Like,
Yeah.
and I'm sure he had plenty of other things to do. So
Yeah. Right. Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
I wouldn't feel too bad.
No, it was fine. I just, yeah, it was like, oh, sorry, guy, because like most of us didn't even wave.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
You couldn't at least give him a wave,
Well,
really?
I was already like coming down from my high of singing with him.
Yeah.
Like I did not have the capacity for that.
Right. Yeah, because synesthesia was how the show ended, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I was still buzzing from that. I didn't have time to think about anything else.
I get no, that I completely understand. But if you had the chance to see Andrew McMahon in the Wilderness again, would you and let's say that you got to choose, would you want to hear Art School Girlfriend in concert? Is that something that you would put on like a preferred set list if you had the choice?
It's an interesting question because Andrew's a hard artist already because I do consider so many of his songs throughout all of his bands like favorite songs of all time, not
Hmm.
just like favorite songs by him. But I do think that I'd also include Art School Girlfriend in that. But I don't feel like it would have the same. I feel like I'm satisfied with the studio recording. I'd love to see it live, especially since he's never done it live. That'd be
Hmm.
awesome. But I also feel like there's some songs that are just way more exciting live. I mean, we're talking about Synesthesia. Like that's a extremely exciting song and is
Hmm.
a highlight during any of his concerts. Whereas I just feel like this one wouldn't be as much. It's a great song, but it's not like exciting in that way.
And this is probably understandably why he doesn't play it in concert. This is my assumption anyway.
Right.
It's not going to get the energy up from
Right.
a crowd the way that a Synesthesia or a Fire Escape will,
Right.
because you will have a nice portion of the crowd that knows the song is like, yes, he's playing this song that he's never played before, and they'll go nut. Those people will go nuts. But 80-90% of people will not go nuts in the venue. So I kind of understand, and so it won't have quite the energy that
Right.
you
And it
feel
doesn't
from the
hit the
crowd.
like high like because you also want the low moments, but those are going to be more your like sadder songs. I mean, we had
Yeah,
Constantine that tour, so like good example, like the slower, sadder, and that song's kind of it doesn't fit that either. It's kind of in the middle. So yeah,
yeah.
that probably is why he does not play it, along with some of the other reasons. But yeah,
Yeah, I'm of the mind like I want to hear the songs that I've never heard before, even if they're not my
right.
favorites. I want to hear those ones that I haven't heard, and I'd go nuts if he did like an all deep cuts show. Which why would any artist ever do that? They're
Right.
not gonna play the songs that nobody knows. So
Yeah, see, like, and I think that that kind of comes from me seeing him once at this point, because I totally get that. If like after you've seen him a few times, then you
yeah,
love all the other songs, but yeah, you've heard these songs live before, so
I've been fortunate to see songs like Fire Escape and Synesthesia and Cecilia multiple times in the last few years, and great songs and come to life even better in concert. So that's kind of where that comes from. It's like,
yeah,
okay, now I want to hear something different.
for sure.
Well, let's talk about the songwriting a little bit. A lot again, not a whole lot of information out there, so a lot of speculation here. But I have heard Andrew state in an interview that this is a quirky song for what could have been a quirky life. So, are you familiar with the concept of sliding doors and what that means?
Yeah, yeah, a little bit.
I know he's mentioned the song High Dive to be the song that's based upon sliding doors, where what would my life have been if I took a different path? But in that same interview, he alluded to this song being part of that too. Like Art School Girlfriend comes from the same type of mindset, like what if I had taken a different path and been with someone else, and what would that life have looked like if I was with this allegedly art school girlfriend as opposed to Kelly? Probably, I'm assuming that's what he meant. Do you think that art school girlfriend is a fictional character? Or is it like one of his ex girlfriends? What are your thoughts on that? Because I mean, we don't have any idea, right?
Right.
But
I think especially since having that context of him talking about like the sliding door with this song, I would assume that it's probably purely fictional. But yeah, maybe it is based off of just a different experience with someone else. I mean, especially when you're talking about because also part of this whole sliding door thing is that like it's something that you could have obtained. It's not like so
mm-hmm,
far fetched. It's something that you could imagine, could grasp. So maybe it is someone based off that theory because like if it was just
mm-hmm.
some fictional person that wouldn't necessarily be like tangible. I don't know.
My only thought there was, with who it could have been, and he doesn't talk about too many other women in his songs other than Kelly, just because they've been together for so long in his career. Who
Right.
else does he have to talk about? Unless he writes a song again about a fictional woman or someone from his much further back past. But Miss Delaney was a song on Everything in Transit, and I don't know if she was a girl from an art school or not, but I do believe that woman went on to be like in marketing or creative something or other. It's something I talked about way back in the Miss Delaney episode, which I think was the second episode. So it's been quite a while. We're approaching 60 now, but I'm just going from memory. And so it did occur to me, but it's probably because, again, there's so few women that he talks about in terms of a relationship in his songs, and
Right.
so there's not too many to draw from
Right.
when I'm trying to make speculations here. So that's my best guess. But yeah, likely it's a fictional character of someone he could have been with in another life if he had chose this door instead of that door.
Right. When I listen to it, I do lean towards the like this has got to be fictional, specifically because of one lyric, which I can also get into later.
So let's talk a little about the sound of the song then. In my opinion, from the first notes of the song, and I think you alluded to this a little bit earlier, but from the first notes of the song, I think you're getting something completely different here.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, you almost instantly are getting this like just like you how you don't always know your instruments. I'm not
Yep.
confident. What some synthesizer that's doing the like kind of 8-bit little flare that happens at the end of every like
Yep.
chord. That part's odd. Even when you get to the chorus, you've got your like child's xylophone sound happening.
Hmm.
Yeah, the sound of the song is definitely odd and definitely stands out.
A lot of sound effects, I like to call them, in it. When I listen to pop music or even electronic leaning music, I say that there's a lot of sound effects because I don't know what the heck they are. So
Right,
we
right,
could
yeah.
could be an instrument, could be a synth, could be a computer.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, that's kind of how I generalize that. Like we said earlier, it just when you listen to the song, it doesn't seem to fit with the vibe of anything else on the album. I mean, it's a good song. So I mentioned earlier that it took me a while to get into it, but I'll say now that I've started to come around to it a little bit more recently. And I will admit, after listening to it like 4 or 5 times in preparation for this episode, I like it more this week than I've ever liked it before. I don't know if it's because it's fresh and new right now. It's got a super catchy beat and all those like little beep boop boops in it and things like that. Like, I
Yeah,
guess it keeps it interesting. I mean, it definitely separates it from, again, the other songs that we know by Andrew, but it's catchy, and there's parts where I kind of find myself nodding and singing along. It reminds me, not the sound of it at all, but it reminds me in that way of Last Straw, Arizona. It wasn't until, so this is a song that I talked about with another guest last year, and similarly, I didn't really know the song going into it until I listened to it like 4 or 5 times in preparation for the episode. And similarly, it's like, okay, now that I just listened to this on repeat, I'm starting to know the lyrics, I'm starting to know the melody, it's catchy, I can sort of kind of sing along, and that's when it kind of comes to life for me.
right.
What is it about this song that was special for you to say, hey, let's talk about that one?
Yeah, I'd love to give you like a really great, good story, deep answer. It is catchy, and it's one that always kind of stood out to me. I think I mean, especially when you're trying to first get into an artist and you're going through all of their discography and trying to hear
Hmm.
everything, it's obviously very easy to like only catch a couple of the songs the first couple of times through. It just some of them aren't sticking in your head, and I feel like that was the case with this one. That it was one that quit very quickly, like got stuck in my head, and I could remember. And so while I'm going through his discography, this is just an early favorite that kind of stood out to me at the time, and just has always hung on. Whether it's true or not, at least in my memory, this is really one of the first songs that I do truly remember knowing from Andrew. Most of the first album was my introduction, and then followed by like this song as the bonus track. I think that's why. Simple as that. It's just it's catchy, and it's what stood out to me when I was going through his discography.
It doesn't. The answer doesn't have to be any kind of like deep meaning or connection to the lyrics. Sometimes it is just like, oh, it was memorable at the time, and it's just something that jumped out. Like, let's talk about a song, Art School Girlfriend. That's really what I'm looking for here. Is like people come to the show and they bring songs that And sometimes, and I haven't had the situation yet where it's like, I want to talk about the song because I hate it. Like, I haven't had that one yet.
Yeah.
But there have been a few different reasons that someone's connected to it or it's kind of lived in their memory for some
Right.
reason. And this is just kind of adding to that.
No, it's a song that me and my wife all like really enjoy as well. She'd also call it one of her favorites. I should have asked her. I should have asked her why she would also like why it stood out to her, but she also enjoyed it a lot. So I remember a lot of our early days of dating, especially, which is probably also part of what's like solidified it as a favorite.
Hmm.
The early days of dating, like this was one that we'd seek out and turn on a lot together to sing together. So yeah, that also has helped.
Well, ironically, so quite the opposite. My wife, I don't think knew this song at all. And so just this afternoon, the day that I knew we were recording, I was listening to the song again this afternoon. I was like, yeah, it's a catchy song. Why haven't I gotten into this song? You know what? Marcy would like this song. This sounds like this is her kind of Andrew right here. Some of her favorites are Fire Escape and Sicily and the Satellite and Synesthesia and Wasted, that Jukebox the Ghosts song that
Mhm.
Andrew jumped on with them. She likes those catchy like singable pop choruses. It's like, oh, this sounds like, and she likes, the newer Andrew stuff that's catchy, like Skywriting is probably one of her favorite new ones, Stars. And so I was like, yeah, this is more her thing. I sent her a link. And actually, funny aside, I went to share on Spotify to my wife, and I accidentally clicked somebody I'm friends with on Facebook that I hardly know. I met them on the rock boat. My wife and I met this girl on the rock boat 2 months ago, and I accidentally sent it to her. So this
Nice.
girl was probably like, art school girlfriend from this guy. So immediately I
Right.
was like, I'm sorry, I sent it to the wrong person. So that was kind of embarrassing. Anyway, all that happened today.
Yeah.
But the
Nice.
good news is, the end result was good because I asked my wife to listen to it, and she's like, "Yeah, I don't know that song at all, and I do like that song." And I thought, "Yeah, exactly. This sounds like your kind of song." But I think it's been buried by the fact that it wasn't on a traditional album. That a lot of
Yeah.
people, like my wife, who don't go too deep into the catalog, like she doesn't know the Something Corporate stuff. She doesn't know Jack's Mannequin deep cuts.
Hmm.
She's mostly an Andrew McMahon in the Wilderness fan, and then some of the Jack's hits. Yeah. So Art School Girlfriend has at least one new fan today. So
Yeah. Good. Good.
yeah,
It's an underrated gem. Absolutely.
yeah. So we don't have any history with it at all, but I don't know. Maybe it'll make its way more into the rotation for us now that my wife knows it. What I do love about it is it's definitely notably Andrew in the way that the piano's front and center. You do hear that right when it comes in, right? You hear the piano, and it's pretty defined throughout the majority of the song. But I would say this is more of an electronic leaning song. But because I don't know if there's any other traditional instruments, is what I call them, except for a piano, because it sounds like piano and synthesizers and programming and beats.
Yeah.
I don't even think those are live drums in it, which, I'm okay with. But I'm curious. So, speaking of which, that kind of leads me to my next question. Like, what do you think of the newer Andrew McMahon material? Because as of this conversation, the album's actually coming out next week. So, it's
Yeah.
very timely. And I actually struggled because I was like, I feel like we should be talking about a brand new song. But you know what? We'll talk about an older song
Right.
that I think does have ties to the new stuff in a way.
No, I've really enjoyed a lot of this stuff coming out. I think some of it's gonna be songs that'll grow on me, especially with the album, just because they don't stand out as singles as much to
As
me.
singles, yeah.
Like "Built to Last," I think that's a great song, but I don't feel like I'm ever seeking it out. It's not.
Hmm.
It's definitely not like his most catchy or upbeat song, obviously.
Right.
So I feel like some of them are going to kind of grow on me more as I get into the album now that it's about to come out. But overall, I'm very excited about it. For me, my big ones were VHS and Skywriting. Those two have been my
Okay.
two that I'm really really excited about and really love.
For a modern Andrew fan, that's not surprising at all. So yeah, it's they're very like upbeat, poppy, electronic, and yeah, I mean they're very good, catchy songs.
Yeah.
I had the good fortune of seeing Skywriting live in concert at the Dear Jack show back in November, and that's one of those songs, and I put Fire Escape in the same category that I didn't appreciate as much until I saw it in concert, and I was like, Wow.
Yes, it is. It is a really good song. But all in all, I do really enjoy a lot of the stuff that's coming out.
I don't know. Songs like the Pop Underground EP, the ones from that, and the Zombies on Broadway album, and then songs like this, the one we're talking about today, Art School Girlfriend, I feel like we're kind of precursors to a lot of what he's doing now, and in heading in that direction. So, but I know he likes to shake things up. I don't know if he'll keep going down the same path, but I know he likes to change things
Right.
every couple of years. So
Right.
it's hard to know exactly what we'll get every album. But
Right.
yeah, like you though, I am truly looking forward to hearing the album as a whole. I think hearing those songs in order among the other songs that are meant to be where they were meant to be by the artist,
Hmm.
that will help me understand the album and understand each song. So,
Right. Absolutely.
all right, so let's talk lyrics. So, based on what I said earlier about the songwriting and the lyrics, it seems like he's imagining this fantasy life that's never happened. Is that what you think?
Yeah, I really see this. Obviously, we talked about the sliding doors, but I don't just see this as like a different path, but a very idealistic vision of something else that could have happened to him. We have these lyrics that are like not great things, government shutting down, like wasting away, waking up on the ground, like, but there's still just this like simplicity to it.
Yeah.
It's just like, but whatever. It's very like matter of fact, doesn't really impact me. And so I do see this as a very much different path than like what he did take. And just this like again, this very simplistic, idealistic, very like I just graduated college and can do whatever and have the means to do so, like privilege. Not to say that he sounds all like, full of himself or anything, but I do
No,
think it
but
has that like very privileged look on like the world doesn't matter. I can do what I want.
yeah, the world's my oyster. I'm carefree because I can be, and I'm not going to take anything seriously.
Yeah,
That's what I get about a lot of these lyrics, and it's kind of this fantasy, which maybe a lot of us who have to go to work every day and have responsibilities, occasionally we think, wow, what would that be like if I could live with no responsibilities, just be carefree, wake up on the ground when I'm done partying, and then get back to it, whatever I'm doing, and I don't have to think about the serious issues that are actually going on in our world and our culture
yeah,
because it's just about me. And I know
yeah.
Andrew wasn't writing this as if that's actually who he is, but that's who he could have chosen to be.
Right.
And
Yeah,
so,
absolutely. I mean, he was in a position where like his family was able to provide for him, and so he did have that more security. And so you see that like absolutely. There's so many people that are going to say like, "Oh, I don't keep up with the news." And I think that there is some like validity in taking care of yourself and not trying to stress yourself out with a lot of things that necessarily you can't control. But also that's a very like
right.
privileged point of view that you don't have to, whereas lots of people this is affecting them day to day, and it
Hmm.
really does matter. So I think he really does harness that like perspective of like I do have the means I to just not care. It doesn't matter.
After talking about this a little bit, it makes me wonder if the art school girlfriend was like a metaphor for a carefree lifestyle, for a life of, again, privilege, carefree. I don't have to worry about anything. I could have chosen that, but I chose to take things seriously, and I chose
Yeah,
to get married, settle down, have a child. And it's also, I think it's also interesting to note that when he wrote this song was likely either while Kelly was pregnant with Cecilia, or as they were expecting, or maybe as they were planning to start a family even at that
right.
point. So just kind of imagining, okay, what would it have been like if I chose a life of no responsibility and just do whatever I want whenever I want.
Even possible that this, he obviously loves his family. By no means do I imply differently, but even as like this could have been some form of outlet, like I'm stressed out. This is
Hmm.
like I'm trying to start this family, and this is a ton. Like I'm stressed. I'm. What if I had take like there was this simpler path that could have happened? Absolutely.
It didn't occur to me this one lyric in the song, and you've mentioned this earlier, but I saw a YouTube comment that I thought was funny, and somebody said, "I like the songs where Andrew is hungover drunk," and I'm like, yeah, there are a few songs that he kind of
Yeah.
makes note of, like passed out again, or like this is what woke up again, and
And I think that's interesting because it also is kind of in a way, it can be a point of clarity after like all of that. You're kind of, literally sobering, but like a sobering moment of like
hmm
realization. Interesting to think about that idea in context with this song, which isn't necessarily like this profound, like sobering idea. Instead, it's much more. This is the opposite. This is the I don't like.
I don't have to
I'm
think
gonna
about those things.
yeah, I woke up and now I'm gonna go find more beer to, to get drunk again. Like, this is kind of like that opposite side of it.
And there's another little nugget in here in the just kind of on a fun note. He mentions a sweater in the song, and that tends to be one of the themes in Andrew McMahon songs is him mentioning a sweater. Last time you were on the podcast, I asked you pop quiz trivia questions, so I'm going to try you again if you don't mind.
Okay, did I pass last time? That's the question.
You did, so
Okay,
it was
phew.
it was
Okay.
great. We were talking about Love and Great Buildings, and I said, "Can you guess at one other song on Zombies on Broadway that was like he mentioned in a different interview because sometimes he gives different answers, which is understandable." And he said in a different interview was his favorite song. You said Walking in My Sleep. I don't know how you knew that.
Ah, great job. I'm great at this.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, yeah. Noah from 2 years ago was very good at pop quiz music trivia.
Yeah.
So we'll see how modern day Noah does.
All right.
This song mentions a sweater. Can you name one other song in Andrew's catalog that he talks about a sweater?
Oh God. I could fart around and try to come up with an answer, but I don't feel like I have one off the top of my head.
And that's all right.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with no.
Okay. I wouldn't have either. I'm not good at pulling out lyrics, without them in front of me. I always, full disclosure to everybody listening, I always have the lyrics all in front of me. I don't recite them from memory whatsoever.
Right.
But here are four other songs that Andrew mentions a sweater in. None of them are called the Sweater Song because, as we know, that's Weezer. The songs are Holiday from Real, Last Straw, Arizona, Sleazy Wednesday, and Hey, 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 We're All Gonna Die. So up until Art School Girlfriend, now that I'm looking at this list, they were all Jack's Mannequin songs.
Huh.
I don't know what it was about that Jack's Mannequin era, but he was really into the sweater thing.
It meant something to him. Whatever it meant something.
Yeah. Well, are there some lyrics that stand out to you in this song?
I mean, we've talked about how this song is very like simple, almost like childlike perspective of the world, kind of ignoring everything else. And you do see that a lot throughout the song because we talked about like art school girlfriend being a metaphor for just this life. And I think that that's also true because especially from like a certain point of view, this feels very pessimistic and is going to inevitably one listener is going to feel very personally called out with this. For certain people, they might say that like art school is not a legitimate like career path. I don't think that that's valid. I think that absolutely it is, but I also do if we're talking about this very like simplistic look at the world of like not having to worry about any other thing, there definitely is some of that like in that going to art school, going out on that limb, that's definitely something that's not going to be happening as much with like people that are maybe struggling financially. Like that does come from a place where people have some security to be able to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that that does kind of track with this metaphor. One lyric that stands out to me, honestly, I won't know if you have any insight on this because I have sat with this one and I got nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And that would be whenever he talks about like sewing a farewell letter with a needle and thread. I get the just where it fits with the whole song, and I understand it's like this like disappearing. But what's up with the sewing it? That feels like such a unique and weird way to say this that I can't help but question why.
Okay, my best interpretation of that is because I do agree with what you're saying, like the farewell letter, as in, I'm out of here, I'm disappearing, I don't have to worry about you, you don't have to worry about me.
Right.
But so I think the sewing is really just related to the art piece of it,
Mm-hmm.
So he's making references to her writing, her photography,
Sure.
and here he is talking about sewing, which I don't know if that's typically considered an art form, but I guess it could be, right? Well, more knitting and crocheting, but maybe that was what worked in the line. That's my best guess for
Yeah,
you.
I think that that's a good point. It's always stood out to me because it is it's such a unique lyric
hmm
to say like sewing this letter. So yeah, I think that that's a good perspective. But besides that, like the rest of the song, it is just very much about this whole like disappearing, just getting to live out like that dream of just getting to not worry about other things. One thing that I do find interesting, and I don't know if you necessarily like pick up on some of the same stuff,
Mhm.
but I do find it very interesting how, especially in the second verse, we hear him continually kind of reference her doing work. She's taking pictures, she's doing this work in a portable dark room, like working on work. And he's just kind of like doing
He's
nothing,
happy
just kind of
wasting
sitting
away.
around. Yeah, he's just sitting around like thinking about the swimming pool. I think it's a very funny dichotomy there because like
Yeah.
the rest of the song is very much like just goofing off doing your own thing, but then we kind of get a look at the girlfriend who's kind of still doing work, like
Yeah.
she's still pulling her weight a little bit, and he is so in his own world.
Oh, I think the whole song is basically she's supporting him. She's doing all the things and that she's
Yeah,
supposed to be doing. She's working toward a degree. She's doing her art, and yeah, he's wasting away. He's waking up on the ground again, and he mentions that twice. And he's just kind of I read your latest papers while you were working. Basically, I'm living in the pages of a book she read. I sewed a farewell letter, so he's just like hanging around. He made a fat withdrawal from a cash machine. Where
right.
is it her cash? Probably. So
Yeah, yeah, true, valid.
yeah, so I kind of interpret the whole thing to be as like he's living off of her while
Yeah.
she's hardworking.
Yeah, see, some of these lyrics I kind of more interpret it as just they're mutually doing these things. But
Hmm.
now that you said it, one of a different line kind of clicks with me of like how he's waking up on the ground and like she's in her sweater, she's wearing her glasses, like she's dressed, she's ready for the day.
Hmm.
And I hadn't really ever like I guess put that piece together. I had obviously heard the lyric, but I was just more taking it as like him describing like who she is, like kind of characterizing. But yeah, I guess that now you say that that does kind of add on that tracks that she's like got her act together and he's
Yeah,
goofing off.
she's all I
Yeah,
need. She's gonna
yeah,
take care of him.
yeah, yeah. Financially and emotionally.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite part of the song?
I feel like my answer would be you hear it throughout the song, but it's just most noticeable after the chorus, after he says like the art school girlfriend, where it does have, and I said it earlier. I don't know if that's actually what is playing, if it's a synthesizer, like a child piano, child like xylophone sounds like these like pre-K instruments that you'd have like a little kid have. And honestly, I think that because it fits so well with this like childlike simplicity of the rest of the song
Hmm.
that it does sound like children's instruments are playing. I think that that really brings this whole like the whole like metaphor to connect with the music and the words in a really nice way. I really like that.
I like the part after the second chorus. I'll call it a breakdown. I don't know if that's what it is, but it's like there's this clapping percussive sound,
Yeah.
and he's singing "She's All I Need," and then he goes back into the third chorus after that. I love that moment because I also feel like I asked you earlier what would you think about hearing this song in concert? I feel like if he ever played that part or ever played this song in concert, that would be where he could either pause and talk to the audience or come out into the crowd or like go off into something else completely, or it could just be a good crowd participation part of clapping, everybody clapping at the same time. So
Yeah.
as I was listening to this song more this past week, that's what I was thinking. I was like, oh my gosh, I could kind of hear that. Him doing that in concert. Kind of gets me energized for the last chorus.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it does lead into it very well.
Overall, this song, and I think we've really gotten down to this point that it's not a serious song for the most part. And correct me if I'm wrong. I think that Andrew McMahon in the Wilderness self-titled was a pretty serious album lyrically.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Yeah, I don't know if there are too many moments that were goofy, silly, not serious. So, if any.
Hmm.
And so I think that's where this song can't really, I have no no experience in this, of course, putting together an album. But I'm sure when you're putting together an album, you don't want probably something right in the middle or even at the beginning or end that's going to kind of take the listener outside of the vibe of the whole album. I just don't think lyrically, and we talked about the sound too, lyrically or sound wise, these lyrics fit with the rest of the album at all. I don't know any other versions of this song. I looked high and low, like I said, just like you. I couldn't find anything on the internet about this song. Just that Instagram live stream, which I'll link in the show
Right.
notes, where he's just playing it on the piano, which actually does sound pretty different than the album version because it's completely stripped down.
Yeah.
Like I said when we started, I wasn't very familiar with this song when we emailed back and forth and we said, okay, we agreed on let's do Art School Girlfriend. And that's why I kind of took that opportunity. So I appreciate you coming on the show and sharing your thoughts about a song that I wasn't that familiar with, but these opportunities give me a chance to deepen my thoughts about a particular song that I've never really given a chance before. And honestly,
Yeah.
I never really gave Art School Girlfriend a chance. And I'm glad I did.
You got the live realization that, hey, this whole song is really about him being a mooch. So yeah, like because I had started picking I had picked up on it, but yeah, like it definitely kind of furthered what I was thinking about it as well. A song that I have appreciated for a long time. So, and I'm glad we got to talk about this song. So many great songs in all of Andrew's discography, but I'm glad I got to talk about one that would have probably been, a few more episodes down,
Probably.
if not for my request. So
Probably. Yeah, I've talked about a lot of heavy hitters lately, so it was good to kind of bring it back down to, all right, let's talk about a real deep cut bonus track here. So,
yeah,
again, I appreciate the opportunity. Do you have any other final thoughts on the song before we close out today?
I think at the end of the day, it is a catchy song. It is goofy, but it's so catchy. I think it also, like, I do think it captures the mentality that he would have more been in during something corporate,
Mm-hmm.
going back to just him being so much younger. And that is one thing that I do like to kind of look at when I go through Andrew's stuff, especially since I'm not as familiar with something corporate's work, to notice those through lines, notice the times when he's calling back to the old stuff or embodying who he was more at that time. It's always an interesting thing to see and to kind of look for when I'm listening to his music. And I think this is definitely one of those instances.
Well, I just want to thank everybody who listens to the show for listening again, and I want to thank Noah once again for being on the podcast. And I just want to say again, keep up the good work educating our youth. I know it's a tough job, and you're in your first year, and it's thankless work a lot of the time, but it's worthy work. And again, I can't tell you how much we appreciate it. Those of us who aren't able to do what you do, let's just put it that way.
No, I appreciate it. I love my job. It's so exhausting,
Yeah.
but there's nothing like getting to hear that you're doing the right thing, especially by your students. Like,
Mm-hmm.
having that one moment where a student's like, "This is really fun today," that can make your week and makes up for all the other stuff that nationally, especially statewide, that we have to deal with. I love my job.
Right. Don't let the people outside the school tell you what you know best because you're in the classroom with those kids. You know what they need. So,
No, I appreciate it. Thank you.
yeah.
Yeah, it's a blast.
Well, anybody listening, reach out to me anytime. And again, thanks, Noah, for being on here. And until next time, living in the pages of a book she read, I sewed a farewell letter with a needle and thread and called in sick for good.